I just feel like I've just kind of naturally disagreed. Like my honest opinion is that I've just naturally disagreed with much of what the athletic program has done. Okay. I don't agree with bringing Frank Martin back.
Hey, a lot of Gamecock fans disagree too. Trust me. It feels like a complete shit show at the top. Back. So
I did not agree with letting Will Muschamp hang on as long as he did. Right. I did not agree, like that was such an undisciplined team under Will Muschamp. Right. And so when you're naturally critical, people think you don't like their school. Oh, he's a Clemson homer. No, Clemson's just doing a lot of things right. Okay. They're doing a lot of things right. But I'll tell you this, Chris, Shane Beamer is doing a lot of things right here in the early going. He's really kind of rallying the troops. He's bringing back the old guard of Gamecock football that was shunned by Will Muschamp. He is really creating a feel-good vibe around this, and he's preaching accountability. I love that he said after a recent scrimmage, we don't have enough explosive plays. That needs to change. Yep. I love that, man. Yep. I love that because it's building accountability with the program. Yep. I think Shane Beamer is off to a great start. Now, I do feel, and as I said, we're going to discuss this on the show today, how will we know if Beamer has had a successful first season? I imagine, Chris, that it's possible for the Gamecocks to be 5-7 and for positive momentum to be building and for that season to be considered a success. But I think we need to quantify what is a successful year one. I like the energy that he has throughout the program. I know that he and people within the Gamecocks athletic program think that I don't like them, and that's totally wrong. Right. You cannot glean or discern that from a tweet about a slogan. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, that's my take.
Yeah. Of course, Twitter's a place where nobody takes anything personally, right? I mean, it's all rational opinion and well thought out things. Right. Since we're on the subject, since we're on the topic, I know you're talking about it today, but the whole Shane Beamer thing, of course, and I agree with you. The overall, the culture, the overall feeling around Gamecock football amongst Gamecock fans, especially, the overall morale is so much better. They're saying all the right things. They're doing all the right things, all the media videos. And, we're in the honeymoon phase, right? Because I tell people, have realistic expectations year one. And I'm curious to see what happens when this team goes out there in the fall, which I think there's talent on the field. And I'll give you my answer to your question in a second. Sure. This team will get punched in the mouth, though. There's no question. There's a lack of depth. There's serious issues. There's serious problems. You play Georgia week 3. They're probably going to punch you in the mouth. There's no other way to put it. How does this team respond? How does Shane Beamer respond? That's what I most want to see. But to answer your question, looking at this roster, looking at this schedule, you add back in the non-conference, you've got Eastern Illinois, Troy, and ECU as your 3 non-conference outside of Clemson. So I think those
you got to win those.
You have to. Yeah, there's no that. I'll tell you this. Arguably, to me, the most important game of the season is that week 2 game at East Carolina, because that's a sneaky game at their place. ECU's no slouch, and it's just one of those games where you have to win. But looking at their schedule, again, you have those 3. You have a Vandy who you haven't lost to in like 15 years. You've got a Kentucky who, hey, this isn't the Will Muschamp era anymore. You feel like you should beat Kentucky. You cannot justify that you are a legitimate football program if you cannot beat Kentucky. I don't give a damn what you say. If you don't beat them, you're not for real. So you got to beat them. You got teams like Mizzou, Tennessee, who knows what they are. So for me, Mark, I'd say this. I know the FBI came out at 4.5. If you go 5-7, I'm not going to be sitting here saying fire Shane Beamer. Like it's a tough job in year one. Really, all I want to see in year one, I want to see a well-coached football team, a disciplined football team, a team that's excited to play, approaches each game the right way, can bounce back from adversity. Once you have a well-coached football team, then you say, okay, Shane Beamer's a good coach. Let's go get some big-time ball players, because we can talk about how great of a coach Dabo is and Saban and everybody. But, dude, you watch Alabama, they just have the best players. Like, hey, players win games, coaches lose them. That's the old adage. But I think getting to 6-6, I think, for every South Carolina sport, making the postseason should be the minimum expectation. I don't really give a damn what the circumstance is. And when you look at the schedule, I think 6-6, getting to a bowl game, similar to Muschamp's first year, would be a success in year one, in my opinion. Again, if he goes 5-7, you're not circling the wagon saying fire the guy. It's like, whatever, okay, tough first year. But getting to 6-6, I think, is very doable and should be that minimum expectation in year one, in my opinion.
Yeah, but at the same time, Chris, it might take some time
right
before you see a disciplined program. Ask Mike Norvell in Tallahassee how hard it is to shift the culture of a program. It's one of the most difficult things you need to do, right?
Yep.
In Columbia, the players were running the show, not the previous head coach, right? That is a culture issue. They have the same culture issue in Tallahassee. You get worse before you get better. Do not rule out the possibility that Shane Beamer could be doing everything right and they get worse before they get better because of what you just said. But to your point, a couple seasons ago, my first year, everybody was saying, self included, that the Gamecocks needed to beat North Carolina in the first game of the year in order to achieve anything they wanted to achieve that year.
And that's when I said fire Muschamp, by the way, just to give you some context.
This year, East Carolina is that game.
Right.
You've got to beat Eastern Illinois, Troy, and East Carolina. Yeah. Then you're counting Vandy as a win to get you to 4. And then you need to win 2 out of the 3 of Missouri, Kentucky, and Tennessee to get to the bowl game. I don't care what anybody says. Those are winnable games.
Yeah,
Missouri,
absolutely,
Kentucky,
100%.
Tennessee, those are winnable games. If you come to play, you're going to be competitive.
I mean, if you look at the schedule, Mark, realistically, this team could start 5-2. And I mean, you can only imagine the buzz around Columbia and Shane Beamer if you start this season 5-2. I mean, it'd be insane. It'd be the most buzz since the Spurrier era. Not even close. So
I've said on my show that I think the Gamecocks could have a flicker in the top 25 this year. With the way that schedule sizes up, especially if they do their once annual unexpected win over a big team, right?
And see, that's the funny thing. That's the funny thing, Mark, is I tell people, because I've talked to Gamecock fans, like looking at the schedule, like, oh, we're going to win this game and lose. I'm like, bro, it's Carolina football. It's not going to be as simple as we're just going to win all the ones we should and lose. Like, we're going to probably beat an Auburn and we're probably going to lose to Kentucky. Let's be honest. Like, that's probably what's going to happen, I guess.
Or
that's the culture.
Or lose to an ECU, or lose to an ECU, but beat Florida.
That's the culture Shane Beamer's trying to change. Is that mindset? That's how Gamecock fans think. Oh, it's just old Carolina. We'll find a way to go 7-5 and lose the one we shouldn't. And that's the culture he has to change.
Oh my
you know
God.
what I mean? It's got to be he's got to change that minimum expectation.
The inferiority complex that the Gamecock fans in the upstate have drives me insane.
Yeah. South Carolina fans aren't even like wearing their gear anymore. They're just, no. Yeah, at least during the Muschamp era.
That's my point. When you're at the store where I live, you see Clemson fans and you see Gamecock fans hiding in plain sight. Okay. You don't see any garden in black. You see orange and regalia. Yeah. And you see people wearing plain clothes, and you're like, you're a Gamecock fan, aren't you? That's the way. I'm just telling you the reality of the situation where I live, right? Yeah. And so the inferiority complex, the woe is me, the weak ass expectations have to stop, man. Yeah. I had so many Gamecock fans. Your expectations for Shane Beamer are unrealistic. I'm sorry. Winning 8 games, including a bowl game in year 2, is unrealistic. Yeah. Like what? Yeah. Like you're seeing across college football that if you hire the right guy, sometimes it doesn't take forever. Yeah. People don't think in year 2 you can go 7-5 with a bowl win. Yeah.
And to your point too, like as bad a head coach as Muschamp was, look at the recruiting. I mean, this should be a top 25 roster. I know they lost a lot, especially defensively in the secondary, which is my biggest concern for this team. But if you really look at the roster and you broke down the recruiting rankings, there's no reason this team can't go 6-6 in year 1. There's just not. If they can get those guys to even somewhat buy in, at least just get your starters to buy in, you can go 6-6. There's no question.
Most important position on the football field is the D-line. Strength of the Carolina team.
Yeah, best position, in my opinion, best position unit on the football team. There's no question.
Period. And Carolina is strong there. That can mask a lot of deficiencies. Yeah. As you mentioned in the secondary. Luke Doty establishing himself as the leader of that team, which is awesome to see. That's exactly what they needed, is somebody. Do you hear Beamer still trying to kind of manufacture that there's a competition, even though there isn't, right? Doty's the starter. Yeah. He's the starter.
Absolutely, 110%.
He's the leader. Yeah. He's the starter, and it's fantastic. The best thing that could happen to South Carolina is for Doty to be taking the leadership mantle as he is.